The floodwaters here don't just recede, they reveal deep in the world's largest tropical wetland. A trail camera caught something moving through the fog just after 3 a.m. One frame. Then nothing. No tracks, no follow-up. Sighting just a shape swallowed back into the mist as fast as it appeared. Researchers who study this place don't talk about it the way they talk about the Amazon. There is a hesitation, a pause before they answer questions about what is actually out there, past the reeds, past the last marked channel. Because every dry season, when the water pulls back, the Pantanal doesn't just expose mud and grass. It exposes things that shouldn't still be down there. Bones, structures, silence, in places that are never silent. What we're about to walk through hasn't been explained. Not by biologists, not by geologists, not by the people who live along these banks and know better than to go in after dark. The Pantanal spans over 42,000 square miles across Brazil, Bolivia, and Paraguay, the largest tropical wetland on Earth, roughly 10 times the size of Florida's Everglades. But where the Amazon opens upward into canopy and light, this place folds inward. Flooded channels twist into dead ends. Fog sits low on the water for hours after sunrise, and each year, as the floods retreat, this labyrinth gives something back. Number 10. The giants that shouldn't exist, green anacondas, are already among the largest snakes on the planet. But here, in the flooded grasslands of the Pantanal, something doesn't add up. Specimens pulled from these waters have measured consistently beyond what field biologists expect, beyond what the textbooks account for. Not by a small margin, by feet. For decades, that has been chalked up to exaggeration. Fishermen's stories stretched a little further with each retelling. But in the last few years, researchers tagging anacondas for population studies have started measuring animals that quietly break the known upper limit for the species. No press release, no headline, just a number in a field log that doesn't match anything on record. And the locals who've lived along these channels their whole lives will tell you the ones getting measured aren't the ones they're worried about. They talk about something bigger further in, where the water gets too deep to wade and too dark to see the bottom. If the largest confirmed anacondas are already rewriting the science, the question becomes obvious. What is the one nobody's caught yet? Number 9. The jaguar that hunts in water. The jaguar has always been an apex predator. But everywhere else on Earth, it hunts on land. In the Pantanal, it doesn't. Here, jaguars slip into the flooded channels and hunt caimans in open water, stalking, diving, and dragging prey many times their size beneath the surface. It is a behavior recorded almost nowhere else on the planet, a predator rewriting its own instincts to survive a landscape that never fully dries out. Biologists studying this population have called it one of the most unusual adaptations in the big cat world. But the camera traps set along these channels have picked up something the research papers don't mention. In several recordings, the jaguar isn't hunting caimans at all. It is stalking something just outside the frame, low in the water, never fully visible. And it does this in the same stretch of channel, on multiple nights, months apart, whatever it is tracking. The cameras never quite catch it, just the jaguar's eyes, fixed on something the lens can't reach. Number 8. The silent zone in one of the most biodense wetlands on Earth. There is a stretch of the Pantanal where the recordings go quiet. Bioacoustic teams monitoring wildlife activity have logged a radius of roughly 2 kilometers where, at dusk, the birdsong stops. The insect drone stops. Even the caimans, usually vocal at nightfall, go still. That kind of silence doesn't happen naturally here. Not in a habitat this dense, this alive. Researchers have ruled out obvious explanations. No fire damage, no chemical runoff, no sudden change in water chemistry. The vegetation looks untouched. The wildlife simply isn't making noise. What is stranger is the timing. It doesn't happen randomly. Every recorded instant starts right at dusk in that same exact patch of wetland, as if something moves through right as the light fails, and everything else in the Pantanal already knows to stay quiet. Number 7. The swamp lights for generations. Fishermen working the Pantanal's back channels have described the same thing. Pale, drifting lights hovering low over the water at night, moving in directions the wind isn't blowing. Locals have names for them, stories passed down long before anyone thought to write them down. For most of that time, they stayed exactly that, folklore, easy to dismiss in daylight. Then in 2019, a research team working after dark managed to capture one on camera. Multiple crew members confirmed what they saw. The footage was logged, backed up, and never made public. No official statement explaining why. Scientifically, there are candidates: marsh gas igniting on contact with air, bioluminescent organisms disturbed in the shallows. Reasonable explanations exist, but none of them explain why a research institution would film confirmation of a folk legend and quietly shelve it instead of publishing. If it really was just gas in the water, there'd be no reason to bury the tape. Number 6. The bones in the mud. Every dry season, as the floodwaters retreat, the Pantanal's mud gives something back. Exposed sediment layers here connect to the same geological record tied to South America's Ice Age megafauna, the giant sloths, the armored glyptodonts that once moved through this basin. Finding fossils in the receding water isn't unusual, it is expected. What happened in 2022 wasn't. A team surveying a newly exposed sandbar uncovered a partial skeleton too large to match any catalogued species from the region. Photographs were taken, coordinates were logged, and then before any lab analysis was completed, before any outside expert was brought in, the remains were reburied by the same team that found them. No public report followed, no explanation for the reversal, just a set of field notes, a handful of photos, and a hole in the mud where something used to be. This is where the story stops being about what the swamp reveals and starts being about what people choose to put back. Number 5. The missing field team working in the Pantanal has always carried risk, flooding, isolation, wildlife encounters far from any help. That is the accepted cost of studying a place this remote. But over the past several years, more than one expedition into the deep floodplain has ended the same way: radio contact lost and never fully recovered. These aren't isolated rumors. They're documented in expedition logs, filed with the research institutions that sponsored the trips. Search efforts were launched. In most cases, equipment was eventually found. The researchers, in some instances, were not. The most unsettling case involves a 3-person team mapping an uncharted channel in Finn. Their last transmission wasn't a distress call. It wasn't garbled or cut off mid-sentence. It was a single word spoken clearly, and then silence. No one who received the transmission has ever said publicly what the word was. Number 4. The village that moved decades ago. A small riverside community on the edge of the Pantanal packed up and relocated. Not gradually, but overnight. Locals in the region still know the story exists. Almost none of them will explain it. Ask a guide about the old settlement site and the conversation changes direction fast, usually towards safer ground, literally and otherwise. What is left behind is stranger than the silence around it. Satellite imagery of the original village site shows something that shouldn't be possible after this many years in a wetland this aggressive with overgrowth. The clearing is still there, untouched by the vegetation that reclaims everything else in the Pantanal within a season or two. Something is keeping that ground clear. And whatever convinced an entire village to leave in a single night hasn't been enough to keep the land from staying exactly as they left it. Number 3. The sound under the water hydrophones lowered into the Pantanal's deeper channels were meant to do routine work, track fish movement, monitor caiman activity beneath the surface, standard data collection. Nothing unusual expected, but buried in the recordings, one signal stood apart. A low-frequency pulse, repeating at intervals, too structured to be background noise. The team ruled out the obvious answers one by one. Boat engines, known wildlife calls, seismic activity. Nothing matched. Every conventional explanation failed. For a while, it sat in the data as an unexplained footnote, the kind of anomaly that gets forgotten. Then, 2 years later, a different team dropped hydrophones into that same stretch of water for an unrelated survey. Nobody was looking for the pulse. It came back, same frequency, same rhythm, same calendar date. Natural phenomena. Don't usually know what day it is, and whatever is generating that pulse 2 years apart in the same water isn't random. Number 2. The map that doesn't match the Pantanal's terrain has always been unstable by nature, a floodplain where channels shift with the seasons, opening and closing as water levels rise and fall. Surveyors know this, they plan for it. But one section of wetland has started producing depth readings that don't just shift with the seasons, they contradict each other entirely, survey to survey, in ways the flood models can't account for. The channel mapped as open water 1 year shows up closed the next. Then it reopens, deeper than before, in a slightly different place. Hydrologists have tried to explain it through sediment drift, through seasonal flow changes, the usual variables. None of the models fit what the data is actually showing. And in the most recent survey, something else turned up. One of these shifting channels doesn't just move, it leads somewhere. a passage opening deeper into a part of the wetland that has never been fully mapped, never been fully explored, because until now the water never stayed still long enough to follow it in. Number 1. What was found at the bottom in 2021? A survey team ran a routine sonar sweep across one of the Pantanal's deep lagoons, the kind local guides call bottomless, more out of habit than fact. Nobody expected the equipment to return anything unusual. Sonar sweeps like this happen across the wetland every season, mapping depth, checking for underwater obstructions, standard groundwork. This one came back different. Buried in the return data was a shape structured, defined edges, right angles. Nothing consistent with rock formations or sediment buildup. Nothing that matched natural lagoon geology. Whatever it wasn't supposed to be there. The scan was logged. The coordinates were recorded, and then nothing. No follow-up expedition has ever been confirmed. No research institution has publicly claimed the data as their own. The file exists, but the story behind it doesn't. Whatever sits at the bottom of that lagoon has been down there since long before anyone pointed a sonar beam at it, and for now, it is still there, unclaimed, unexplained, waiting for the water to pull back one more time. The Pantanal floods every year, and every year it takes something back with it. Bones, silence, signals nobody can explain. A shape in the water that no one has gone back to find. We came looking for anacondas and swamp lights. What we found were more questions than answers, and a wetland that seems to decide, on its own terms, what it is willing to give up. Maybe some of it stays buried for a reason.